I didn't really know what I was going to talk about until I just sat down here. But I think the question came to my mind for me to rant about was, why do I feel so drawn to Salvia divinorum and sensory deprivation? Basically, taking salvia and using it in a sensory deprivation chamber. If you haven't seen any of my information, there's links in the description below about what a portal is and my podcast and stuff. But basically, a portal is a sensory deprivation chamber. It's basically a small room, like the one I'm in right now, that is designed to sit down in and lay down in, and you can meditate, you can have psychedelic journeys in, you could sleep in, and what makes it sensory deprivation is that the walls are very thick, so it's very quiet and practically soundproof. It's also light proof, so I can take substances and have zero visual input so that I can really immerse myself in the experience. And then it keeps my body safe. So if I am really deep in an experience and maybe dissociate from my body or just lost in visions or emotions or whatever, that if I'm moving around or flailing around or wanting to get up or something, I'm not worrying about my body. It's just contained and safe inside a chamber until I come back. And then the last thing being, if I make a lot of noise or if I start to emote or cry or yell out, whether I'm conscious of it or not, the chamber itself will contain the sound so I don't disturb neighbors or alarm anybody who might, hear someone yelling or crying or whatever other noises one can make when they're tripping. So I think I'll talk about what is it about Salvia divinorum that had drawn me into it, and why I decided to just really invest in creating chambers and portals for myself to pursue the endeavor of this exploration even deeper. I think with Salvia, I've done it many, many times, especially in the past year. I've probably done it at least 200 times, maybe 250 times. And most of that was chewing the leaf and having low to medium strength experiences. And then I was smoking the extracts. And I mean, this was just the past year, but the first time I did salvia was almost 20 years ago. Maybe like 18 years ago was the first time I ever did it. And ever since then, I just was always drawn to it. Even though I didn't do it that much the first few years, I eventually just really got more and more fascinated with it. And the experience, there's many different things that would happen in the experience. And so there was this curiosity of just like, whoa, this happened now, and then something totally different would happen. And it was always extremely profound. As the experience started to come on, especially with smoking, it would come on pretty quickly, and there would just be a total phase shift in reality itself, like what reality was, what it was made out of. There was like a vacuum of, like the ego is sort of vacuumed out, and I'm just left with just this pure void of awareness or something. But then I'm also shown all kinds of things too. Sometimes it's just a void. Sometimes I'm just totally immersed in the imaginings of my mind. Sometimes I'll think thoughts and then I'll see the structure of the thoughts and like how that thought, like when I think of a bird flew over the house yesterday, it's like there'll be a bird, but then the concept of over, there's like the word over, the sound over, there's the letters of over, and then there's the concept of over of, well, what does that mean? And so there's like, over means there's something down, there's something above, and then it goes over it. And so there's like this sort of, I'm thinking the words, but then there's this subconscious it's like a process that we take for granted, but it's like the imaginings of it are visualized. Like there's a syntactical structure to the words and the meaning themselves in the mind, in the eye of the mind. So the bird, you can imagine a bird, but then flew is a little bit more abstract, but like in the mind, flew has whatever. It's got like some sort of texture or shape to it, and then there's like this movement to it. And so when we think thoughts, there's a really, really complex thing going on. We tend to just focus on like the meaning, but not like the visual, and we take the visual part of it for granted. And so something like salvia especially, I see the syntactical structure of the thoughts. And this happens with other psychedelics too, but there's something about the way salvia can do it is it's not just like a hallucination looking thing. It's like I'm totally immersed in it. Like I'm merged with it. Awareness is kind of disconnected from my body and like moving through. So like the bird flew over, and then there's like this whole structure that's in 3D space. It's like some sort of virtual space comes to the foreground, and then I see how thoughts are actually formed and what they actually look and feel like, and then I can like awareness can move through them, and like the texture of these different structures, like sound structures in hyperspace, I think is how, I forgot who said it, maybe Martin Ball. But like the sound and the meaning creates these structures in space, and then I can move through them, and the mind is creating and changing them, and then so I'm thinking different thoughts and different meaning, and I'm just immersed in this whole other kind of reality that is actually always kind of here. It's just in normal waking consciousness, these structures of syntax that our mind runs on, our thoughts run on, they're just wispy and they're in the background. Like they don't come to the foreground. And with salvia, they really came to the foreground, and then I would just merge with them. They would become massive and just totally awe-inspiring, just like, oh my God. And then in the experience, just going, I can't believe I'm actually doing this all the time. And that's what makes a human what a human is that we have the power of the imagination. And that seems to sometimes be like, oh yeah, the power of the imagination, or oh yeah, like we can imagine, as if it's just something that arose. It's like it's definitely way, way, way underappreciated in my day-to-day life and in people's day-to-day life in general, is the imagination itself. It's like, it's insane that we actually have that we're not just cameras that are just walking around in the world and just moving around. We're like a camera on a body that moves around, and we just see whatever's there. Like with the fact that we can actually imagine pretty much anything, and not just imagine anything, but imagine things that never have existed, and imagining like colors and patterns and then meaning within syntax, and then those have their own structures, and they interact with other meanings and colors and textures and structures, syntax, visual syntax. It's totally insane that we can actually do that. And so under the influence of salvia, it just comes right to the foreground. And then it used to be, when I would, the first long time I would do it, all these structures would appear, all this stuff, I would get immersed in it, all these seemingly alternate realities would appear, or I would it seemed like I'd travel back in time to like some other place that I remembered. But really, I think what was going on is I was remembering it, and then I was like creating the whole scenario in my mind and just becoming so immersed in it that it was real in the moment. But man, what was my train of thought there? There's like this realization that like, oh wow, I'm creating all these thoughts, and then reality itself is a thought form more than it is like some sort of concrete reality. And so when I look at the wall, I look at it and I'm kind of describing what it is, what it's made out of, how big it is. It's like I'm the one that's doing that. Like, not me, the ego, but like awareness, consciousness itself is like, it's looking at things and it has all these ideas and concepts of what it is and where I am, what year it is, whatever that means or whatever. But ultimately, the wildest things I experience is that of all the things that I'm imagining and thinking reality is actually made out of, and like what I am and where I came from or whatever, all these ideas, it just comes back to like I'm just dreaming, and like reality has always just been this dream of like imagining, and it's like imagining things, imagining reality into existence. Not that reality is purely just, it doesn't it doesn't like shrug it off. It's like, oh yeah, this is all just a dream, it doesn't matter. No, it's more saying that it does matter, and it also doesn't matter because it is also just a dream. But that reality itself, it's just more like a dream. And so if we can recognize that aspect of reality, that fundamental aspect of reality, then it frees us up from a lot of delusions and confusions that we may have about ourselves and our place in all this and all that. So yeah, it gets wild having these experiences, and then just there's like the psychedelic aspect of it, but it's more like there's like a perspective shift that's so massively profound and just unexpected, like totally unexpected. Even when I do it still, it just, awareness kind of turns, and all of a sudden I have this completely different vantage point about what I am, about space and time, about what the imagination is and what it's doing, and or whatever. It's such a radical shift, and I go, how could I possibly have forgotten this sort of thing about reality? But I do. It fades to the background, and then kind of just get immersed and entranced by day-to-day reality, like the dream state of our lives. Yeah, so it's just super cool. I think I'm going to leave it at that because I have to go soon, but I just wanted to rant a little bit about that. But it's like there's rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole as far as working with Salvia divinorum. I love psychedelics, but Salvia has just